Hello folks, this is Mark again with Apple Creek Outdoors, where we are documenting our day-to-day and season-to-season activities here on the homestead. We hope you find these videos informative and entertaining, and we also hope that it helps you establish a productive garden or homestead. Now, in today's video we're going to look at both pruning the grapes and expanding the vineyard. Now, first of all, we'll go ahead and begin pruning the grapes. One of the first things you want to do is remove any dead wood or any dead growth that happens to be around. And then here you can see too that growth was actually the old main stem, but it had died. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of last year's vines and we're going to turn this into our new main stem. And what we want to do here, once we get this new main stem, and I see there's two right here, but we're going to go ahead and prune off one of the bottom ones. Prune that off at the base. And we're going to turn this stem into our new main trunk. Now this new main trunk, we're going to want about 3 to 5 branches, each containing about 8 to a dozen buds each. Now I like to trellis my grapes on a fence. You know, once again, this is just a yard fence, but it works great for that purpose. So beginning about right, let's see, right in here, I can see some buds forming. So I'm going to cut this off. Usually it ends up being about arm's length, maybe a little bit more. And then I'll weave that in and out of the fence to hold it in place. You can also use zip ties or string of some sort. Now you can handle these vines fairly roughly. They will bend. The one thing you do want to be careful of though are the buds that are starting to form. Now you can see right here we have a bud that has swelled up and it's actually about to open up. You want to make sure you avoid damaging these. Typically you want to prune your grapes in the winter time. It's getting a little bit late here at the end of March to be pruning grapes, so you do have to be careful with those buds. You'll also notice the water that's dripping out there. You can see that the sap's really starting to move in the vine. Don't worry about that though. If you see that, they'll be fine. So here we have another branch radiating out from this new central trunk. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 buds. And that's about right. Maybe leave a little extra right there. And I don't leave very long branches on these, but then go ahead and weave those back into your trellising fence. Now this one's coming from a plant way over there. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off and get this out of the way. There we go, that's starting to look a lot better. So here are our 3rd and 4th branches. And I just try to get in here and pick the healthiest. They're all looking pretty good. But with grapes though, if you want production, you've got to prune them back fairly heavily. Some folks watching probably will know a lot more about pruning grapes than I do. I definitely do not claim to be an expert in this department, and they would probably suggest to even prune them back further than what I am. Now I like to get my grapevines up high so they can get plenty of air circulation underneath them. Here's another branch, so I'm going to cut that off. Here we go. Let's see, we'll go this way with this one. Once again, I'm being careful to not rub those buds against the wire. We'll prune this off, and there's what our finished grape plant should look like. The most productive wood on the grape is going to be last year's growth, and that's what we're trying to save to make our 3 to 5 branches. Now I just wanted to show you the difference here between growth that's at least 2 years old and then last year's growth. It's very simple. If you take a look here, you can see this is some growth that's actually 2 years old, and you can see that the bark actually starts to flake off. Whereas last year's growth, I have an example of that right here, is very smooth and it almost has a reddish appearance or a reddish brown appearance. Now I like to, when I prune these grapes, to pick those 3 to 5 stems that I'm going to save, 3 to 5 branches that I'm going to save. I like those to be fairly close to that central trunk. So any of this wood here that is at least 2 years old or older and radiating away from that central trunk, I'm going to go ahead and prune off as long as I have some new growth coming up closer to the stem or closer to that main trunk. So I'm going to take this off right here. And here you can see this is actually what would have produced our fruit last year. And that's the wood that we do want to get rid of. A simple way to expand your vineyard is to find one of last year's vines that has a lot of length to it. You can see this, what is probably about 12 to 15 feet long. Now, what I like to do and what has worked fairly successfully for me is I'll go about 6 feet at least. You want your grapes to be about 6 to 10 feet apart from each other. And I will dig out a hole along the fence, and I'll dig that hole fairly deep, a good 6 to 8 inches. And then I'll take this grapevine, and without breaking it, I will put this in the ground. We'll weave that through up here just to hold it in place. You can see I have at least, I think, 3 nodes, for sure 2 nodes. Yep, there's 3 nodes in the ground. And then we'll just go ahead and cover that back up with soil. And we'll step that down. And more often than not, that grapevine will actually go ahead and set roots where we've buried it, and then we'll have a new stem right here. And when you use this method to start new grapes, you want to leave that attached to that parent plant for at least 2 seasons. And then you'll also want to come back and prune this back some. You don't want it to try to be supporting too much growth here from where it comes out of the ground.